In 1829, explorer Charles Sturt led a desperate expedition into Australia's outback, convinced he'd find a vast inland river. His men nearly died of thirst searching for waterways that didn't exist. This wasn't an isolated error. It stemmed from a 200-year-old cartographic mistake that shaped Australia's colonial history. Why did Europeans stubbornly believe in rivers that weren't there? European mapmakers like John Arrowsmith depicted Australia's interior as blank, not because rivers were absent, but because they followed a dangerous assumption. Having mapped Africa and Asia with massive inland rivers, they declared Australia barren when immediate coastal surveys found none. This river expectancy blinded them to Indigenous knowledge of the Murray-Darling Basin. Blank spaces on maps morphed into scientific proof of Australia's aridity. The 1814 Stromlo map omitted known rivers, while the 1827 Arrowsmith map labeled the interior desert. Each reproduction amplified the error, creating a feedback loop where maps cited other maps as evidence. By 1840, the myth was entrenched in geographical societies worldwide. Charles Sturt's 1829 expedition epitomized this delusion. Despite finding no rivers after months inland, his journals insisted they must exist. He blamed unseasonal dryness. Teams hauled boats through deserts, expecting to sail any day. Psychologists now recognize this as confirmation bias, discarding evidence that contradicts beliefs. The river myth warped Australia's development. Colonial governments allocated prime farmland near coasts, assuming inland areas were barren. Settlements like Broken Hill faced water crises, while Indigenous irrigation practices were ignored. The error became policy in 1836 when Surveyor General Thomas Mitchell declared inland agriculture impossible. By 1900, the myth reached schools. Geography primers like The Australian Continent, 1895, taught children. No significant rivers water the interior. Newspapers mocked the idea of inland waterways. This institutional reinforcement made the fiction unshakable, even as hydrological surveys began revealing the truth. 20th century hydrologists finally debunked the myth. The 1921 Royal Commission confirmed the Murray-Darling Basin, covering 14% of Australia, had always existed. Satellite imagery later revealed hundreds of ephemeral rivers. Tragically, this came too late. Generations had accepted the error as fact. Cognitive scientist Dr. Emily Banks explains, humans prefer flawed certainties over ambiguous truths. Once European maps declared Australia riverless, contradictory evidence was dismissed as anomalies. This belief perseverance recurs throughout history, from flat Earth myths to medical misconceptions. Today's equivalents include the 10% brain myth or vaccines cause autism, debunked but persistent ideas. Like 19th century cartographers, we often mistake absence of evidence for evidence of absence. Climate change denial follows similar patterns to the river myth, rejecting data that contradicts worldviews. As Sturt's men learned tragically, not all maps reflect reality. Whether literal or metaphorical, from political borders to social norms, we must scrutinize the maps guiding us. Ask, what evidence supports this? Who benefits from this narrative? Like Indigenous Australians knew about rivers, marginalized voices often hold truths that challenge common sense. The real lesson? Knowledge isn't static. It's a river we must keep exploring.